David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for doing this. I know this is we met over email yesterday. We've met in person in 2017, but we never got to really have a conversation or really go deep. And you are the president and CEO of La Familia Pawn, 36 stores, 14 in Florida and 22 in Puerto Rico. Tell us how you got into the pawn industry.
Well, I'll try to make it short, but I looked to get into the pawn industry. I was about 10 years ago a partner at a private equity firm that specializes in investing in growth companies. We were looking to get into the pawn business, and we were presented with a great investment opportunity with a very new chain or growing chain of pawn shops based out of Orlando, Florida, and also growing in Puerto Rico. And we saw that it was really interesting. We were looking for something with a Hispanic angle, and we invested in La Familia Pawn and Jewelry, which is a Hispanic-focused chain of stores out of Central Florida. We have about 14 stores in Central Florida now. Way back then, we didn't have as many. And in Puerto Rico, we are basically the largest and only sort of organized chain of pawn shops in Puerto Rico, because none of the major sort of national chains operate out here. So after a while, from the investment side and the board of directors side, I decided to step in and run the company full time, which I've been doing for 3.5 years.
Nice. Awesome. And just so the listeners know, and I always ask the pawnbrokers this question, in Florida, what's the interest rate? And then in Puerto Rico, what's the interest rate?
Yes, in Florida, the maximum interest rate you can charge is 25% on a 30-day loan. And in Puerto Rico, the maximum is 20%.
Nice. Okay. And is there like a term in Puerto Rico or?
Yes, 30 days as well.
Oh, awesome.
The Puerto Rican pawn law was modeled after the Florida pawn law, so it's very easy for us to deal with both.
Nice. So you've been running the shops for 3 years, and you came in as an investor, and they basically said, hey, David, we want you to run the shops. How has that been so far for you being in the pawn industry, and what have you taken from other industries that you've been in to create the success that you guys have today?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And so first, on a personal basis, this was always sort of our pet investment, the favorite one, because it's the most fun. There are so many moving parts to the pawn industry that there's just not a slow week or slow day or even a slow hour without something going on somewhere in one of those parts. And that makes it very engaging, a lot of fun. It's very customer focused. And the second part of your question, which is great, because as an investor, you always keep hearing people say that their industry is unique and different and not like anything else. And when you do get a chance to step back and look at businesses from a sort of 50,000 foot level, you see that all businesses basically operate and follow sort of common laws of, let's call it, business physics. You have to take great care of your customer. You have to have a very well-defined product and a well-defined message. You have to know exactly how you compete, where you compete, and you have to keep your eye on the ball. And the pawn business is no different. You have to keep your eye on a lot of balls, but that's just what makes it more stimulating and fun when you get it right.
Love that. So how many staff do you guys have at the moment?
We have 253 people working for us.
Amazing. So I know that one of the biggest issues or things that we talk about on the podcast or in the coaching calls is people. So
Yes.
how do you guys at La Familia keep a great culture running when you've got stores in Florida, stores in Puerto Rico? What do you guys do to make your people happy and to find people to come work for La Familia?
Yes. Well, from the founding of the company has always been very focused on being a great place to work. That starts with the first way you attract people is by offering them competitive compensation, not just a good, if it's a store level employee, not just a good monthly or hourly salary, but good monthly targets and bonuses and ways to make some money. That's what motivates the kind of people we want to get at. Now, beyond that, what a lot of people that come to work for us from other industries tell us, they sort of mirror what I already told you, is that this is a lot more fun than working at the shoe store.
Yeah.
If you're customer focused, if you like to make decisions on your feet, if you like to go into a workplace where no day is like the prior one, and you have to keep looking at things in different ways and making decisions really quickly. I don't know how many decisions a shoe store employee gets to make in a day. They probably don't make as many decisions in a year than one of our employees gets to make in 5 days. So the key here is to look for people that fit a certain profile. You want to get people that love people, people that really enjoy that interaction, and that are not afraid to make decisions quickly. And if you fit that bill, we're going to pay you well, you're going to have fun, you're going to be in an environment of just ever change. And so that takes care of your store level employees. Managers love us compared to other things. For example, we get a lot of people that worked at Rent-A-Center, and managers at Rent-A-Center work for an incredible amount of hours. They need, they have to work in the stores, and then after the stores, they have to fill out a ton of paperwork or whatever it is they do. And it's usually 7 days a week. And they like the fact that we don't work them to death. And that's also good because we allow people to have a work-life balance that I think they appreciate. We're not too big to be bureaucratic. We're small enough to be approachable. Every single employee has my cell phone number, and I've probably met every single one of them. And I see them many times a year. So they know, and they're stimulated to pick up the phone and call me if there's anything I can do for them. And that's how we try to keep that magic going.
And you mentioned something. You said, we hire people who love people. A lot of times they go to stores and I see employees, and I call them the pawn pirates, right? They're the ones who are killing the culture, destroying the store ambiance or whatnot, because they just don't like people and they're grumpy.
Yes.
How do you test for that? How do you interview for that? How do you know that this person likes people when you're bringing people on staff?
We've tried many different ways to test for that. And to a degree, some tests correlate better than others. At the end of the day, training will tell us two things. First, not everybody goes through our training program successfully and emerges out the other side. So we have a deep training program. We have a lot of hands-on. We get to see them in action. Some people, not a lot, because we go through a good interviewing process and testing process, but some people won't make it through training. And that's okay. They weren't cut out to work with us. So we'll observe them carefully. If they're ready to go, we will put them in a position where they can work with people. If they're not ready, then we'll rotate them out and probably stimulate them to go work in the shoe store.
And I think that it's great that you said that, because a lot of people who are listening, they bring people on and they train them, at the front counter, and then 3 months later they're like, man, this person's not great, but they're afraid to let them go. What you're saying is you do a deep dive training, and if they don't make the cut during the training, they're out, and then you just keep on doing the same thing. Is that correct?
There's something I stress to my people, and anybody who's listening to this who knows me probably heard me say this, and it's not my phrase. I learned this from some professor in business school, but he said, fail fast, cheaply. And so don't be afraid to fail. Try a lot of different things, but do it quickly so it doesn't kill you, right? So the same thing with people. And by the way, we're not perfect. I think everybody who's in business makes the mistake of hanging on for too long to a relationship that isn't working right. And those types of things that when you finally make that move that you needed to make, you go, oh gosh, why didn't I do this, weeks ago? But we try to instill in our group that if something isn't working and you've tried it, or somebody isn't working and you've tried them fast, it's much cheaper and better to do it quickly than to just let it prolong.
So let's talk about that. You brought up an awesome point. You said fail fast, cheaply, right? We talked about what's been great about La Familia and the hiring and the leadership and the culture. Going to 36 stores, it's not easy. What are some mistakes that, looking back, now that you've been in the business for 3 years, you guys have been invested in it for a while, that you would want to share with the people listening that you guys made to look out for today?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. I think that, I mean, there's no real whoppers there. There's perhaps the only mistakes one does make, and that sort of repeats what you already said, is sometimes you try to make it work with people in a position. Uh, However, if there's something to warn people about, is promoting is not necessarily rewarding. And that's a mistake that is really important to make. Sometimes you have, let's say you have a great desk person, a great sales and loan associate working the counter, and they're wonderful, and they're the kind of person that'll just never say no to anything, and you love them, they love you. It's a great thing, and then you think, wow, this person's been doing such a great job for such a good long time. It is time to make them manager. And if they're not the management type, if they're not analytical, if they're not leaders, like not every star player in a basketball team can be the coach. And sometimes we want to make them all the coach as a reward. What ends up happening, if they're not cut out for management, is they will hate it. You will hate what they're doing there. Their employees will hate them. And then there's no way back. You can't just put the genie back in the bottle and move them back to where they were and pretend nothing happened. So ultimately, they'll end up leaving the company, and you just lost one of your best salespeople. You just lost one of your best loan consultants, and it's terrible. And that's a mistake we try to not make, and that we've learned in the past. Probably not cheaply or fast. But,
that one took a little bit longer. Okay, so nice. So what's the future for La Familia? I mean, you guys are going to keep growing, and where do you think the pawn industry is going?
Yes.
Because you guys came into a business when I'm guessing when the gold boom was kind of still happening.
Yeah.
Don't remind me of that.
The other day, I took a peek at the financial projections that were made in like 2010. And by now, of course, we'd be scrapping, I don't know how many millions and millions of dollars in gold, just based on a linear projection of that. And in fact, we're scrapping probably 10% of that. And so yeah, where are we going? We have carved out a very nice niche for ourselves as a company that knows how to cater to the Hispanic market very well. And we know we're doing a great job when we continue to see double-digit pawn loan balance growth in Central Florida. Now, as you know, and as our listeners know, the two states with the most pawn shops are Florida and Texas and Florida in that order. There's a lot of competition, and we sort of keep taking business away from each other, and so it's a slow growth business. And for us to be able to have figured out how to continue to grow double digit every year in pawn loan balances encourages us to know that we've figured out how to operate successfully even in the face of a lot of competition. And so in our cards is to continue to grow, not only in Florida, as we're now looking for places of high Hispanic growth, which is the whole state really, because Florida is a very high Hispanic growth state. But we are looking at adding locations in Florida. And we're also starting to look at pockets of high Hispanic growth up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States, in states that have favorable pawn laws. So we're very happy with La Familia. We have some traction with our business model, which is one of the things I worked on when I came on board, because we had a lot of stores, but every store operated like an independent store. We had that depended on the manager and not on our way of doing business. So what I spent a lot of my time doing, and if you ask, by the way, any of our 250 odd employees what my favorite word is, I think they will all say, because it's been hammered into them, consistency.
We're best friends now. That's what I always say every time. It's all about consistency.
You can't walk into one store with a chain and get offered completely different terms than when you walk into the same chain's store 2 miles down the road. and just because they're thinking differently. You can't have a different customer experience. You have to have consistency in your practices. And we have really hammered that home and developed systems to reinforce the consistency here, such as checklists. That'll be a word that probably brings nausea to a lot of our employees, but we are really driving consistency across the chain, so that whatever we do well in one store, we can learn how to bottle it and duplicate it and multiply it across the chain. And that has been perhaps our biggest gain in the last few years, that we now feel so comfortable with being able to bottle our magic and take it somewhere else. And that's great.
It's awesome you say that, because I feel like a lot of people in the pawn industry feel that in order to build a better culture, you need to be more relaxed, right? Not as many rules, not as many systems, not as many procedures. But for me, it's the opposite. The more procedures and systems there are, the safer the staff feels. They know what they're doing. They know when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, why they're going to do it, and what the outcome needs to look like, which fits the word that you said, consistency.
Yeah. You could have a lot of fun at work, but you also need to know what the parameters are that are expected of you. And know that if you perform to those parameters, you will be rewarded. And if you don't, you will be trained. And if you continue to not do it, then there's many other places where you can go do whatever it is you want to do, but it's certainly not at La Familia. And so I keep comparing our business to flying airplanes or to conducting surgery. There are ways to do it that are proven and tried and true. And if you follow those checklists, a pilot, very highly paid people, highly educated, highly trained, and yet every time you get on an airplane, they pull out a sheet of paper, if you were to observe them, and they go, here's my pre-taxi checklist. Here's my checklist at the run-up. Here's my cruise checklist, and it doesn't take away any of their merit to follow a set of tried and true things that are going to get the 200 people in the back home alive. Like I said at the beginning, this is an incredibly complex business. You have many variables that are all interrelated. And if you start letting one of those go, you're going to see all the others slip eventually. So we changed the name of our financial metrics page, but we used to call it the blood test, because in a way it is like the blood test. If your your triglycerides are up, that means your cholesterol is probably going to suffer, and that means this and that. If one or more of your metrics start going to hell, you're probably going to go downhill fast in health, and that's why they do all those. So you got a 3 or 4 page blood test when you go, and that's real important to keep your eye on the ball, and if it helps to be supported by practices and checklists, then so be it. Then we can be better and more successful.
And I think that you mentioned something. You said keep your eye on the ball. A lot of people in the industry don't know their metrics. They're not keeping their eye on the ball. They're just how much money's coming in, and that's all that matters. Obviously, from the background that you have from business school, from the investment fund, from knowing that this is a good investment, you guys didn't just put your money in and said, okay, as long as the pawn loans are happening and interest is coming in, we're happy. To grow to 36 stores, you have to consistently look at metrics, consistently look at numbers and different areas of what's happening to make sure that this is still a viable option that you guys are making money. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. There are things we look at daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually that we correlate to the success of our business. And it's funny, if you become in this business, if you focus entirely on loans and not on retail, you're going to have one business, but not necessarily a complete business. Likewise, I see a lot of independent guys focusing a lot on retail and not enough on their loan balance. Yeah. And then you become sort of a retailer at crappy gross profits that, because we don't get the 40 or the 50 or the 60% gross profits that some retailers can get. We operate in a 30% range. And so, and especially if and then you have to keep buying stuff to resell in your store, you become a dollar store. But at the end of the day, we say everything lives, the root of our business is the pawn loan book.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily our entire business, because we have retail, and it's a beautiful thing. So keeping that fine balance, keeping all those health metrics in order to be able to successfully grow and operate is important. You cannot fall in love with your inventory. We keep hammering that home.
Amen.
You see some other people carrying stuff in their stores for over a year or more. Sometimes they don't know how much inventory they have. And I just tell everybody, picture a stack of $100 bills in the back, and that's what that is. It's not lawnmowers and bicycles and guitars and drum sets. It's $100 bills all stacked in the back that you could access.
I see it as $100 bills, and then every month you take the $100 bill and you cut a piece of it off.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Easy money.
They're getting eaten by moths.
Exactly. Yeah, the rats are coming through, and the cockroaches.
You need to fish them out while you still can.
Yeah.
So that's important, and it's a beautiful thing. Is also there's not one way to do it, and we're constantly learning and evolving our model, and that's one of the things I love about sort of our affiliation with the NPA and getting to meet a lot of my fellow pawnbrokers, and it's fascinating and humbling to meet people that have been in business for decades, or even our second or third generation pawnbrokers. And there is so much that I've been able to learn from them. I might pick up on something they're doing that I probably wouldn't do, but there are 5 other things they're doing that I find fascinating, and then I take little notes, and I come back to our team and I go, hey, we should look at this. So I've been blown away by a lot of the fellow pawnbrokers I've met, thanks to the NPA, and it's been a great learning experience. And
talking about the NPA, you have an amazing story. But first of all, you're speaking this year at the Pawn Expo.
Yes.
In Vegas, and I'll be there doing live podcasts and having a great time. I agree. I think going to the NPA show, to the national show, you get people from different countries, different states, and you learn so much. You have an interesting story that you actually won, through a raffle or something, a free NPA membership. And
yes.
Then when they called you, they realized that you are a multi-store operator. But
right. I was excited. It was my first NPA. Our company was not a member. And so after I went in full time, I said, well, let me go check this thing out. Let's see what it's all about. So I went to Vegas, and I was walking around, and I put my card in a bowl, and I heard my name being called. It's the first time I ever won anything, by the way. So, and maybe it was Destiny, or maybe Dana or Helen or somebody just were very strategic. I don't know, but so I won it anyway. I show up there and I said, free NPA membership. It's a great thing, because with a bunch of stores, you do the math. It's a hell of an investment. I said, I love it. We're members. And they said, well, it's only one store. And I said, oh crap, really? And they said, okay, so good. We'll just, we'll sign up one store. Sign us up. And I said, well, no, the rules say that if you're a multi-store operator, you need to sign up all of your stores. And so that took a lot of thinking. And thankfully, I'd been to the conference, and more, perhaps. I mean, there's some great content at the show, but more than the content, to me, the really valuable part was meeting the other fellow pawnbrokers. Just these discussions you have, these just you grab a bite with somebody, or you just meet them in the hallway, and you start talking, and you develop a friendship, and you can also benchmark. You said, do you guys do this? Well, how do you do that? And you learn so much just from that, that it's well worth the money. Also, you asked me where the industry is going. I think we're sort of lulled in this industry into a false sense of complacency. It's almost like the lobster story where they put the lobster in the water while it's cold, and then as they heat it up, the lobster never realizes he's getting cooked. I don't think we're getting cooked.
Yeah.
But I think if we look at the industry as a whole for the last 20 years, I don't think it's grown that much. There are other industries that do the same thing we're doing, which is solving people's money problems, that have grown in leaps and bounds over the last 20 years. Take payday lending, for example. Take auto title lending. Take some of the internet lending things. And as an industry, we really need to understand how we fit into that ecosystem, why all these payday lenders have been eating our lunch, and realize that our real competitor is not the pawnbroker across the street from us or 1,000 yards down the road. It is the payday lender that's out there loaning money to people, sometimes at even higher interest rates, with horrible consequences when you don't pay. Because when you don't pay a pawn loan, hey, so you lost your watch, you got some money for it, nothing bad happens to you. You're not, your credit isn't dinged. You're not going to be the subject of aggressive collection practices. It's all right. You can even come back the same day and get another loan. We don't care. So as an industry, we really need to understand how we fit there. How are we attracting younger people? Our average loan customer is 40 years old. So what's happening to all the 20-year-olds? Where are they getting money when they need it? And so alone, we can't do this. We need to get together and define the route of pawnbroking in the next 20 years. And also something that the NPA does very well, defend ourselves against the possibility of encroaching regulation. There's a lot of people, especially people who've never been in a pawn shop or don't understand what we do or don't know our customer, that think that what we do is a terrible thing. Oh, you loan money at what? I mean, in California, it's not a terrible thing because what is it over there? 4%?
4%. I'm crying here.
That's why there's 3 pawnbrokers, and that's why Sam Shockett's got all the business over there. But when somebody up in some state representative says, hey, these people are lending at 25% per month. Oh, can't have that. They just don't understand what we do. They don't understand the service we provide. And as an industry, we really need to get together and defend ourselves. And the way to defend ourselves is not by sort of sticking our head in the ground and pretending that if we don't make any noise, they might not notice we're there. So that's why being an NPA member to us is so valuable.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm super excited to first see you speak. At Pawn Expo, Captain Phillips is speaking. Captain Richard Phillips from the movie, which is going to be amazing. I love the movie. I've seen him speak on videos, and he's great. Such an inspiring story. And also, like you said, just getting together with other pawnbrokers. My brother and I, we were members, every year, and it paid 10 times the value just sitting at lunch with somebody, sitting at dinner with somebody, and getting one idea.
For sure.
And if you're thinking about this, listening to this podcast, and some people say like, oh, the NPA, listen, it's time to lead. That's what I always say. Come out to the NPA show, go to pawnexpo.com, register. Come hang out with us in Vegas. I'll be there. David will be there. There's incredible speakers, incredible vendors. Support your industry and learn. If you want to learn, if you want to make more money, if you want to learn how to lead your stores, this is how you do it. You're listening to this podcast, but you're also going in person to the national organization and finding out what's going on nationally.
Oh, yeah. There's. I can't wait to see Sally Morrison, for example. She's going to be talking about the whole lab-grown diamonds thing, and I think she's an executive at De Beers, and so she should know that better than anybody. And that's something I'm looking forward to, learning about what's going on with lab-grown diamonds and where they fit and what should we be doing about them.
Yeah, we've got. I'll quickly jump in. We've got Women in Pawn, Lyndon Miller, Gina Barkin, Beth Anundi, 3 incredible female pawnbrokers who are going to talk about how to expand the customer base and attract more females. You've got the Building Your Digital Community panel with Seth Gold, Lauren Kaminsky, and Daniel Yankee, who these guys are online influencers.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to talk about how to grow your influence online. Just so much to learn. Technology and so much going on at the NP at the Pawn Expo.
I think you have the panels, you have the speakers, you have the show, which has a bunch of new exhibitors this year.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to get there because it's almost like a homecoming.
Yeah.
And you get to get together and understand what the different issues that are facing us are, and seeing how we could approach them together as an industry. We compete with each other, but beyond that, it is all in our benefit to keep the industry growing.
Yeah, and you might just win a free NPA membership like David did.
That's right. You could get roped in, and then once they get you, then it's very, very tough to leave.
That's right. That's right. David, this has been amazing, brother. I really appreciate your time. For those of you who have not signed up for Pawn Expo, go to pawnexpo.com, or you can go to the nationalpawnbrokers.org website. If you're not part of the Pawn Leaders podcast community, go to Facebook, join the Pawn Leaders podcast community, where we've got close to 600 pawnbrokers asking questions and talking about the pawn industry, leadership, marketing, and strategy. And I really hope to see you, David. I'm sure I'm going to see you there and shake your hand. And again, I appreciate you being on the show.
Yes, thank you very much, Yigal, and great time. And I look forward to meeting anybody who's listening out there too, and shake their hand.
Thanks, Pawn family. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Pawn Leaders Podcast.